This is Dave. Say hi, Dave. Dave is a team leader within his company. He's very proud of his position, but is currently going through a bit of a rough patch. You see, Dave has a new general manager, Jeff, to whom he reports. And Dave is finding that the expectations placed upon him as a leader have changed significantly. You see, Jeff is a big fan of an approach called transformational leadership, and he's determined to see this style of leadership in use across his division. Unfortunately for Dave, things didn't start well with his new GM when he admitted that he didn't know what transformational leadership was. Things degenerated even further when Dave admitted he didn't know what transformational change was either. You see, Dave is a fixer. He likes solving problems, and he sees his role as monitoring his staff for errors. So, to cut a long story short, Jeff sent Dave back to school to first learn about the process of transformational change. Back in the classroom for the first time in a couple of decades, Dave learned that transformation isn't just your average change with a big word placed out the front. Of course, Dave thought, it would have to be more complex than that. You see, there are 9 principles of transformational change, and the instructor who was taking Dave's class made it clear from the start that Dave wouldn't be allowed to leave until he could recite and define all 9. What Dave discovered is that transformational change must be actively engaged by the individual, and that Dave's direct reports couldn't be forced to change, not even by Dave. It must involve a second order change, which Dave eventually discovered involves a change of underlying assumptions, not just a change of work practice. And hence, this transformation must involve a change in behaviours and beliefs. Dave learned that the change must involve an irreversible paradigm shift. There'd be no careful planning and prototyping allowed. Therefore, it requires leaders to let go of the myth of control. Dave became even more uneasy when his instructor cheerfully proclaimed that transformational change always involves some aspect of loss or letting go. And it represents a broadening of an individual's worldview as they uncover new possibilities in both thought and action. So what Dave discovered is that overall, transformational change represents a movement towards greater integrity and wholeness. But perhaps most disturbing for Dave, when they finally moved from talking about transformational change to transformational leadership, they were presented with a continuum that progressed from laissez-faire leadership through transactional leadership and on to transformational leadership. Whilst Dave was initially pretty confident he'd be sitting nice and comfortably to the right, the instructor brought out an assessment called the Multifactorial Leadership Questionnaire, an assessment of transformational leadership, which firmly placed Dave in the dunce's corner to the left. So Dave left the training knowing that if he was going to keep the job he'd worked so hard to get, he needed to find out more about this transformational leadership stuff. Luckily for Dave, we happened to have a couple of videos ready to help him out. One of the most widely used models of transformational leadership, the full-range leadership model produced by Bass and Aviolo, portrays movement along 2 axes, the horizontal from passive to active, and the vertical from ineffective to effective. The model moves from laissez-faire leadership on the bottom left, right up to the author's description of transformational leadership as the 4 I's. Along this continuum, a leader might sit in management by exception passive, where they mostly put out spot fires and deal with errors as they arise, to management by exception active, where they are constantly and closely monitoring their staff for errors, and further upwards to contingent reward, where a leader attempts to motivate by the provision and withdrawal of rewards or punishments. Within the full-range leadership model, transformational leadership is defined as the 4 I's. Idealized influence, or charisma, describes leaders who are strong role models and make others want to follow them. Intellectual stimulation involves the encouragement of followers to be innovative and to challenge the leader's views and the status quo. Inspirational motivation involves the focusing of followers on a shared vision or set of goals, while individualized consideration involves the fostering of a supportive climate where individuals' needs are understood. A somewhat similar model of transformational leadership was proposed by Kouzes and Posner, which identifies 5 practices of transformational leaders. Model the way, or be a role model, inspire a vision, challenge the process and hence the status quo, enable others to act and support followers' autonomy, and encourage the heart, as in use emotion to persuade and motivate as much as logic. So what did you think, Dave? Is that all? Okay, well, Dave, could you give us a moment, please? Thanks, Jeff. So while we've got a moment to ourselves, I think we need to have a quick chat about Dave. Dave brought up that he thinks he has charisma, and this leads on to one of the controversies around transformational leadership factors. To what degree are they trait-based, and to what degree can they be learnt? Let's hope for Dave that it's more of the latter. Kouzes and Posner have said that leaders need to be honest, forward-looking, inspiring and competent. And I think here Dave might unfortunately be 0 from 4. And finally, I think we need to consider the Kouzes and Posner second law of leadership. Do what you say you will do. And again, this hasn't been Dave's strong point. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I know this has been tough for you. Well, that's an interesting question you raise, and luckily we've got another video that might help you out. So, what are the strengths of transformational leadership? So what are the strengths of transformational leadership? Well, the theory has been extensively researched. It takes a development focus towards individuals and organisations. It considers the follower-leader relationship. It's clearly more than a transactional reward process. It connects into the follower's needs, values and motivation, and it invokes moral action. And in the research, it's been demonstrated to enhance group ethics, increase employee engagement, improve employee drive for ongoing development, and lead to enhanced team performance and cohesiveness. But perhaps most importantly, it builds trust. So as you can see, it has quite a strong body of evidence. If we consider the weaknesses of the theory, we can see that it lacks conceptual clarity around many of its domains. There has been shown to be substantial overlap across the 4 I's. Many of the factors may not be unique to transformational leadership, bringing into question whether they are important or even relevant. And there is debate over whether it represents a trait or personality predisposition versus a behaviour that can be learnt. So Dave, we thought we'd give you a couple of examples of transformational leaders to help you on your way. The first is Nelson Mandela, who transformed an entire continent. Mandela had the ability to lead by asserting his authority, authenticity and commitment, and he encouraged racial harmony in a country ripped apart by apartheid, practiced forgiveness towards his prosecutors without forgetting the indelible mark they left on his country, and focused on the future, not the past. So how did Mandela demonstrate transformational leadership? Well, he appreciated the power of symbols and the moral persuasiveness of genuine acts of magnanimity. He also set an example of reconciliation and a vision for his countrymen, and then let them know he expected them to live up to it. Michael Jordan is another example of a transformational leader. While Jordan was an athlete of phenomenal physical gifts, it was his inner drive that drove him to incredible levels of performance and set him apart. He led the Chicago Bulls to win an amazing 6 NBA championships and inspired others around the globe who all wanted to be like Mike. Jordan was a leader that was inspirational, self-confident, determined, and projected a strong image. His intense passion for basketball inspired his teammates to elevate their level of play in order to get the best out of every individual on the floor. It wasn't just Jordan's ability on the court that brought about the success with the Chicago Bulls. It was a result of his charismatic leadership style that inspired loyalty, enthusiasm, and high levels of performance from the team.